Hi, my name is Joseph Alai. Welcome to my channel. And today we're going to talk about how to create and implement a manifestation system that works in 2021 so that you can begin to create the reality you have always wanted. So, do you want health? Do you want wealth? Do you want love? Do you want happiness? By creating, planning, and implementing a system that you can easily utilize on a day-to-day basis, you will inevitably, just like the thousands of clients that I've had, just like the thousands and thousands of viewers that I have, be able to achieve the goals that you've always wanted. Your dreams are at your fingertips. It's only now a matter of utilizing what we learn in this channel to create the reality that you want. For the last 10 years, I have made it my entire life's mission to create systems which ultimately work in a predictable, data-driven way. So the first place we need to start when identifying the methodical plan that we're going to implement is, what are your goals? What do you want to experience? And so the first step is actively writing down a list or a series of lists about the different aspects of your life and what you want in them. So an example of this would be to create or on a piece of paper, list down multiple columns with health as one, wealth as one, love as one, happiness as another, and spirituality. And then begin to list down all the different desires that you have. Now, an extremely important part is we want to make them beyond what we would think with our logical or reasoning mind would be possible. So in other words, it is very easy to get caught in the cycle of thinking from the limited mind of someone who has never experienced a manifestation before. The key to all of this is to understand that anything that we want is at our fingertips. We have the capacity to create anything that we want if we can just conceive it within our mind's eye. And so going beyond the point to which we think is possible is ultimately a great place to start. So researching or thinking back to when you were younger, when the sky was the limit and you knew that you could get anything that you want, that is where you begin. And then you list down all the different aspects of those traits of life and make sure you are specific in what you want. For example, if you wanted to have a lot of money, that in and of itself would not be sufficient. What you should do is specifically target an amount of money that you wish to desire or you wish to experience or you wish to manifest, and think about it. When you do it, is it something that is absolutely ridiculous to the point to which no one would ever be able to achieve it? And also, see, that might be a little bit too high, because in your subconscious mind, you need to be able to imagine and impress it with something where you can actually embody that state. And if you are incapable in any regard of imagining that thing, then you probably should come down just a little bit. It's not to say that it's not possible, but it's to say that you need to be able to impress your subconscious mind in a believable fashion. Now, if you say a number and it is just something that you feel like you could achieve regularly without the help of God as your imagination, then you need to go a little bit higher. But this is the way that I outline each of these characteristics, each of these traits with various different listings. And once you do that, you now have the outline for what you want to achieve in this reality. Now, you can always add to this. You can always modify or remove. A lot of times our desires change. I usually stick with things that I know that I want. I've always wanted them. And so I choose those and I go a little bit higher. Once you have this listed down, this is the core, the base of everything that comes next. And so this step after this is the beginning of the daily systematic routine. So what I do after I know what I want And this is what you need to do if you want the results. You have to begin to research these different aspects of your life. You think about the things that you wrote down and contemplate and ask yourself, do I have a good idea of what it would be like if I had those things? That's a very important question. On a scale from 1 to 10, how confident are you that you can actually enter into the state of mind of someone who already has something like that? So for me personally, I make it a daily thing where I contemplate in my mind various different scenes, meaning imaginal scenes that I will then later visualize or write down or script. And I contemplate how I can improve those scenes. The core of manifesting what you want is to be able to fully identify or fully embody the state of mind of a person who already has what you want. So as an example of that, again, with money, if you wanted $500,000, if you wanted $5 million, how confident are you that you actually know what it would be like if you had that? And this is one of the most critical errors that people make, is thinking from their limited point of mind and attempting, or just essentially resting on their laurels and being complacent and not ever really going to the next level and doing deep contemplation over what it would be like if you had that. Now, I already gave you a hint as to how to research. You have to look up the various, facets of your life, which would be different if you already had that sum of money. So how would your health, wealth, love, happiness, and spirituality, and even friendships, how would those change if you had what you wanted? And this is what I contemplate during the day. Now, besides that, during the day, when I get an idea of something that I want, and say it's just something I want, not something that's as critically important that I need to go home and spend 20 minutes visualizing it. The moment I come up with the desire, if I have the chance to do so, I will deliberately sit down with a notebook and write down as if I've already received that thing. So it's essentially similar to journaling from the future. It's writing down, I received this, I obtained this, someone said this to me. In this endeavor that I set out to do, I was extremely successful. But you want to be as specific as you can when it comes to these things, because the reason we do this is when things are presented to us, we always want to imagine first before we ever take action. This is a practice that you will master over the course of days and days and days, which is to specifically and deliberately take the time to set into motion the end result that you want before you take any action in this reality. This stems from the whole fact that everything we do has first been born in our imagination. We contemplate something, imagine something, or have some belief, and that belief gets pushed out into this reality. And so when it comes to encountering different things that we have to do, we should always write out or imagine the end result before we ever act. So the first we have is the contemplation. This we should be doing all day, not in an obsessive way, but in a fun way of thinking, how would life be different? This I do all day long. When things come up, I write them down in the tense of already having received them or already having completed them. And from then on out, everything that I encounter starts to come smoothly and easily and effortlessly. The next thing that I do is, if I have a negative thought that is contrary to my desires throughout the day, which is a very common thing, I jot that down. I make note of it. And the reason is because our subconscious mind is continuously giving us thoughts based on our beliefs. So the belief is the thing that exists within the subconscious mind. The negative thoughts come from those beliefs. So it isn't sufficient to combat beliefs with the opposite, or combat thoughts with the opposite thought, but rather we must uproot the problem in the first place. Otherwise, it will persist over and over and over and over again. So if it was something having to do with money, in essence, if you believe that you're incapable of receiving money, or if you think that it's extremely hard to receive money, or that you cannot win contests or competitions and that the odds are 1 in 24 billion or whatever, these are beliefs that are going to feed you thoughts that are going to ruin your day and your manifestations if you don't get them in check. So to jot down whenever you have these thoughts is to make a note of them and then ultimately distract yourself with something entirely different. This is the beginning of the end for your negative thought. So it's not that we have to counter the negative thought with a positive thought, because the essence of manifestation is that anything met with force will never solve anything. Manifestation is not done with force. It never will be. It never has. And everything is manifested. And so the key here is to always use manifestation to do whatever we want, to fix whatever we want. Later, we're going to do something with those beliefs. But after, say we get towards a time period throughout the day where we have some free time. Now, what I do is, if I have enough time, I will, in my inner conversation, depending on where I am, or if I have a moment to actually close my eyes, I will perform an imaginal act if I have a good idea at the time based on something that I want. It doesn't have to be the ultimate end goal, because we need to take breaks between imagining that. But, and we'll get to that in a little bit, but if there's something that came to mind, or something medium-sized or little, or even if I haven't, or if I've taken a break before on my big desire, I can choose that. But at the free moments in the day, I will close my eyes sporadically, or just use an inner conversation and affirm to myself or visualize to myself that I have received a desire. So effectively what we're doing here is keeping the idea of manifestation in our mind all the time. That doesn't mean to be obsessed and feel like we have to, but it's ultimately keeping it alive in our mind to realize that we can utilize this anytime and to practice it. So say we did all that, and say we come towards the end of the day. Once I'm home, and if I have a little bit of free time, and sometimes it's only 5 minutes or 10 minutes, but I will begin to saturate my mind with evidence of the senses, meaning on YouTube, looking up articles, reading books and biographies of people who have what I want. Now, this is talking about the ultimate desire, the things that you want more than anything else in the world. I found that saturating the mind with evidence of people who already have what I want is a great way to get out of the limited mind of the person I am now and stretch that and enter into the state of someone who already has it. This in turn will make visualizing much easier. This in turn will make scripting much easier, or whatever technique that you want to. So the key here is to take notes of these people's states of mind, how they feel, what they think, what type of lifestyle they are living, and kind of get some inspiration to draw from so that you can begin to expand and write your imaginal scenes. Now, you may have already been writing imaginal scenes, and that's perfectly fine. But the key here is to keep it alive in your mind, stretching and expanding, and figure out more things that you could turn into scenes to begin to stretch your mind forward to get you your manifestations. And if you have been encountering what I call being state stuck, meaning not receiving any manifestations or not seeing any movement where you want, then this is also the thing for you. So once we have done this little exercise of stretching our mind forth into the state of the wish fulfilled, so to speak, from then I have these thoughts fresh in my mind, and I will jot down any key takeaways from this experimentation that I've been doing with trying to stretch my mind forward, to see if I want to convert any of those things into imaginal scenes that I want to imagine later. Now, you could do this aspect right before bed. You could do the research, you can do the writing down, and then you can go right to bed and do it after. But oftentimes what I'll do after I'm researching, after I jot some ideas down, I will kind of just sit and process everything and try to, again, picture myself as that person. Now, this is not the imaginal act. This is just a contemplation so that I can begin to stretch myself and remove myself from the limited mind of Joseph Alai, whatever my limits are today, and push them forward a little bit more. So I just take time to process it and allow it to kind of permeate inside of my consciousness. And then ultimately later on, what I do is I reflect back and say, has there anything that I need to take care of based on negative thoughts of the day? Is there anything important that is something ahead of me that I feel like I could imagine that would make things better? I take the little things first and I imagine those. Now, this is when you have time. This is when you're nearing to sleep. This is when nearing upon sleep or nearing towards sleep is when your consciousness is most dim, which means your subconscious mind is way more impressionable. So whether that be you're scripting now from the point of view of having conquered an obstacle, you're scripting now, writing the opposite of the belief that you think has caused that negative belief or that negative thought inside of you, this is the time I utilize that. We're kind of getting in the state of manifesting as we go along in this nighttime process. Now, for some people, it's not going to be reasonable to take a ton of time to do this. And even in my own life, things get busy, but I still make sure this is the number one priority because your imagination, your subconscious mind, your consciousness, your creative power is the imagination, which is the most important thing inside of you. And if you do not take this time to stretch it, to think about it, to contemplate, to visualize, to jot, you can easily get swept back into someone who's fallen asleep, which is another word that I use for someone who doesn't know how to manifest. So ultimately now it brings us to a point where we're going to sleep. We've done the work before, we've contemplated during the day, and it's time to put this into practice. When I go to imagine at night, I always do it in order of the least important to the most important. But if I feel like I'm going to fall asleep, the most important thing that I can do is visualize or imagine the ultimate manifestation that I wish to experience. And the way that I do that is when I'm going to bed, right before I do that, I take a few minutes sitting up on my couch, and whether I play back something, one of those inspirational things, or read a few pages of a biography for a moment, I get it fresh in my mind and I try to contemplate the scene even before I go to bed. And this is just so it is easy to bring forth back into my mind when I lay down. Now, there's a couple keys to imagining proper scenes. I always try to imagine something that's easy to fall asleep doing. If I'm having an active, wild, vivid imaginal act, then it may not be as easy to fall asleep while doing. But some of the easy cheat codes, I call them, to manifesting before bed is imagining yourself in a place that you're falling asleep, but in the state that you want. So if you wanted to be rich, imagine yourself in a mansion, the mansion that you've selected by doing the research, and imagine that you're on the bed in your mansion as you're falling asleep, but then in real life, fall asleep. Or something easily repetitive or loopable, like shaking someone's hand and hearing them congratulate you on your extreme success, and then you responding back. Something very simple. Or some of my biggest manifestations have just been peering out into a foreign landscape because I wanted to go on a vacation, and then those manifest extremely quickly. But these are some tips, and that is what you want to have ready before you get into bed. And then as soon as I lay down, I take some deep breaths to settle myself. I might count backward depending on how stressed I am. The more stressed I am, the longer I'll count backward. And this is just to focus my thoughts in one place. And then I will begin to imagine. My goal is to try to get this scene to repeat at least 5 times. Now, for those of you who are not sure, you need to make your scene loopable easily, something short and condensed so that you can repeat it enough until it is effortless as you fall asleep. And as you fall asleep, you imagine that thing over and over, trying to remain as effortless as possible and not using force. This is going to take practice. But ultimately, when you do this, You will impress your subconscious mind if you can get near to sleep, and then the next day, your manifestations will begin to blossom. Now, that would be the beginning, and the only pivot I would have after you've started this is during the day, always write down your manifestations as they come. This is your inspiration and excitement on a rainy day. Write these down and keep your eyes open for your manifestations. They can't miss you. You have to receive them, but you want to take note of them because it accelerates even more manifestations. So ultimately, in the end, we wake up. Optionally, if you want to, imagine something quickly when you wake up, but during the day, contemplate your imaginal acts. If there's negative thoughts, make a note of them. If there's obstacles, imagine those quickly. Afterward, you need to research a little bit on your end. You're contemplating all day anyway, but to write down variations of a scene to stretch your consciousness forward or more towards your end result. You ultimately then take care of these obsessive negative thoughts. You need to get ready to imagine, and then imagine before you go to sleep, and then watch as your whole world changes. So I hope this was helpful. Subscribe, bell icon, like the video, and comment below with your results having done this. All of your manifestations will come to pass doing this, so get started today. Thank you.